good morning. So today we are going to start our unit number three, that is the environmental aspects and energy management. So in previous two units, we saw the basics of power plants, the different types of the power plants from which we generally create an, we can say the generate the electricity or the generate the power, and that power has been consumed by the customer. Now, in the first unit, we saw that the basics of the power plants, what are the different types of the power plants, what are the factors which are affect the installation of the power plant, how to plan the power plant, all those things we saw in the unit number one. In unit number two, we basically concentrating on the economic side of the power plant. Is that power plant is economical? What will be the cost related to the electricity generation? What will be how to say that different tariff methods and how to calculate the energy cost per unit. Okay, that we saw in the unit number two. That is basically it is concentrating on the economical side of the power plant or the economic analysis of the power plant. In unit number three, we are generally going to concentrate on the environmental aspect related to the power plant and the energy management. So as we know, there are many types of power plants which are operating currently in the world. Most of those power plants are the thermal power plants, and in India, nearly 60% of those thermal power plants are running on the coal. So obviously there will be some consequences or the effects will be there on the environment or the surrounding. So those effects we are going to see. Specifically, we are going to concentrate on the environmental aspects related to the power plant and the pollution which is created by the power plant. So the this particular topic will have different points. The first points, that is the different pollutants due to the power plants and their effect on the ecology or the surrounding area. That the pollution monitoring instruments, how to control over these different types of the air and water pollutions, and what are the measures we have to take to control this pollution. Right. That is your first point. The second point will concern with safety and maintenance in the power plant. As we know, during the operations or after some period we have to carry out maintenance of the power plant, and there must be some safety procedures should be there, or the safety methods, we can say the systems should be installed in the power plant. So the safety of the working force should be considered. Now, in the safety and maintenance of the power plant, we are going to see the operation and maintenance procedures of the power plant, different operator skills requirement, and the safety during the selection of the power plant equipment. All those we are going to cover in this chapter. And the last point, that is related to the energy management and the marketing and also the energy audit. So this energy management are basically, it is related to the energy conservation side. As we know, the most of the energy, nearly, if you say in India, nearly 10 to 20% of the energy goes waste. So to reduce that waste, we required to follow some procedures, and that particularly will be covered in energy management. And there are many energy conservation techniques also, which you can apply and save the energy, right? So as we save the energy, it will very equivalent to the reducing the consumption of the energy. So we have to concentrate in this particular chapter. We have to concentrating on first of all the consequences of the power plant pollution on the ecology or the environment. The second point, which is related to the safety and maintenance of the power plant, because we cannot carry out safety as it is. There must be a standard procedure that we have to follow during the maintenance, and which the different safety systems should be installed in the power plant. Okay, and the third point, which is related to the energy management, or we can say the energy conservation, and also the marketing and energy auditing. Okay, so in today's lecture, we are going to see the first point, that is the different pollutants due to the power plant and their effects on the ecology. Ecology means what? It is not just an environment; it will also consist the human being. So, what are the effects of those pollutants? What are the bad effects of those pollutants on the environment as well as on the human being? That we are going to see, and how we can control that pollution. The quantity of pollution which is mixed with the environmental air or the environmental water, how to control that quantity. how to reduce that quantity, that we are going to see. So first of all, as we know, in thermal power plant, there are many type of pollutions which is created by the thermal power plant. Specifically, if you want to say, the most of the thermal power plants will cause the air pollution and the water pollution. Those are the two main pollutions which is caused by the thermal power plants, or whatever the uh, exhaust gases coming out from the thermal plant, or we can say the whatever the exhaust water, wastewater which is coming out from the thermal power plant, which will carry some pollutants, and it will mix with the environment, and that is cause the degradation of the environmental air. So in that case, we have to monitor that situation, or means how much amount of pollutants has been released by the thermal power plant, and what particular methods we have to imply to reduce that pollution, right? Because it will going to affect on the ecology or the surrounding environment of the power plant. Also, it will sometimes affect the human being. Okay, so in that case, we have to study all the air pollutions or the water pollutions caused by the thermal power plant, and what should be the methods or the ways we have to develop that will reduce the amount of that particular pollution. Okay, so generally, if we saw from the thermal power plant, most of the air pollutants are coming out, and also the water pollution will carried out, or we can say the water pollutants has been, or the wastewater has been disposed by the thermal power plant. Now, when this air, which is, or the we can say the exhaust gases coming out from the boiler, when it directly mixes with the atmosphere, whatever the pollutants available in the exhaust gases is directly going to mix with the surrounding air. There's pollutants. There are different types of the pollutants are there. You can say the thermal dioxide is there, nitrogen oxide is there, carbon dioxide is there, carbon monoxide, unburned hydrocarbons in some cases, particular matters, that is a big problem in India nowadays, or the fly ash, carbon particles, silica, alumina. So all those are called as the pollutants. Okay, because these particular molecules, or we can say that those particular substances badly affect the environment, badly affect the human being also. Okay, this sulfur dioxide, we are saying, this sulfur dioxide will affect the human body. It will sometimes causes the cancer, lung cancer to the human body. So these are there are the bad effects which will happen because when we release this directly these pollutants into the environment. Okay, so first point we are going to see what is the air pollution which is done by the thermal power plant. What are the different air pollutants which are released by the thermal power plant, and how to control. What are the ways, potential ways that by implementing those methods or the ways we can control the pollution. So the thermal power plants are burning conventional fuel. Most of the thermal power plants are running on the conventional fuel, nearly 80 to 90%. Conventional fuels means it will be using the petroleum products. They can use the coal as a fuel, or the oil as a fuel, or the natural gas as a fuel. So after combustion, what will happen? After combustion, there are exhaust gases. Okay, because of the chemical reaction, exhaust gases will be created, and those exhaust gases are the waste. We cannot use that, or the recycle, or we cannot directly use for the another application. Those exhaust gases that must be released to the atmosphere. So that particular exhaust gases will contain all these pollutants like the thermal dioxide, nitrogen oxide, carbon dioxide, carbon monoxide, fly ash, etc. So whenever we want to release that into the atmosphere, don't directly release to the atmosphere. Before releasing, we have to carry out some processes on on that particular exhaust gases, and we can reduce the level of pollutants from those exhaust gases. After reducing the level, we can release it into the atmosphere. So these thermal power plants are generally run on the conventional fuels as a coal, oil, gas, and that will contribute to the air pollution in the large measure because the capacities of those thermal power plants is very big. So in that case, the exhaust gases released by those particular thermal power plants are very large. Okay. So common gaseous products or the pollutants, as we know, sulfur dioxide is there, nitrogen oxide, carbon monoxide, carbon dioxide is there. Then particular matters, this is the most concerning area, or we can say the pollutants nowadays in the India. Then carbon particles are there, silica, alumina, iron oxides, etc. These are the some pollutants, and on which we have to monitor how much amount of those pollutants has been released by the thermal power plant. The energy industry is the one of the biggest source of the environmental pollution, as we know, particularly the air pollution and the water pollution. If you consider 350 megawatt of coal-fired power station, thermal power station, it will emit about 75 tons of sulfur dioxide, 16 tons of nitrogen oxide, 5 ton of ash per day if not safeguard as adopted, or if he doesn't carry out any method processes on the exhaust gases, it will directly reduce the 75 directly exhausted 75 tons of sulfur dioxide, 16 tons of nitrogen oxide, and 5 tons of ash per day by the 350 megawatt of coal-fired power thermal power plant. Okay, so generally the thermal power plants will have more capacity. It is generally more than 350 megawatts. Sometimes it is near about 1 gigawatt, etc. So in that case, we cannot increase the sorry. Okay, so in that case, we cannot increase we cannot exhaust these exhaust gases directly into the surrounding. We have to reduce the levels of those pollutants, and after that we can release it into the atmosphere. Now, many countries have the unique air pollution problems. These are due to the fuel characteristics. Now, again, the characteristics of the fuel is also going to affect the quantity of pollutants coming out from the thermal power plant. There are other factors which are like unfavorable topographic conditions are there, concentration of the power plants in limited areas are there, high population densities. So these are the other factors which are affecting the pollutants coming out from the thermal power plant. Now, what are the different pollutants are there? As we uh, as we already discussed, that is the sulfur dioxide is there. It is one of the most dangerous pollutants coming out from the thermal power plant, because it is not only going to affect the environment, it is also going to affect on the human being. It will causes whenever this particular sulfur dioxide enter into the human body, it will causes the cancer. Okay, so it is very it is very toxic to the human, we can say, and it will affect the human body in a bad manner. Okay, so this sulfur dioxide is oxidized, which is oxidized slowly into the atmosphere, and it will also react with the oxygen into the atmosphere, and it will create the sulfur dioxide, and the further reactions will create the uh, sulfuric acid. Now, this sulfuric acid is highly irritating to the upper respiratory tract, or we can say the human body. It will generally causes the acid rains also in some areas. So these particular pollutant, the sulfur dioxide coming out from the uh, power plant is very dangerous to the environment. Okay, there are many other effects also. Just you can read the reference books, you will understand. Then the another pollutant is the oxides, nitrous oxides. Okay, nitrogen oxides are there. As we know, whenever there is combustion, which is combustion, when combustion will happen at very high temperature. In that case, the nitrogen which is available in the atmospheric air, it will combine with the oxygen because of the high temperature. And when it combines with the oxygen, it will create the nitrogen oxide. Now, those oxides, it may be a nitrogen oxide, nitrogen dioxide, etc. Those nitrogen oxides are very poisonous to the human body. It will very harmful to the atmosphere also, and it will very harmful to the human body also. Okay, so these nitrogen oxide, it may be nitrogen but dioxide or the nitrogen, any nitrogen trioxide, etc. Okay, those are very harmful to the atmosphere. Okay, these nitrogen oxide will decompose into the nitrous oxide, nitric oxide, and the atomic oxygen in the presence of the sunlight. So in the presence of sunlight, oxygen, one of the oxygen will be break out from this particular nitrogen oxide, which will create atomic oxygen. Now this atomic oxygen will again react with the normal oxygen atom. So if we say the atomic normal oxygen which is present, which is we said that it is the pranavayu of the human being. So that is having chemical formula O2, and the atomic oxygen means only one atom of the oxygen. Okay, so that breakdown of oxygen, one atomic oxygen will react with the normal oxygen gas, and it will create the O3. Now O3 is the ozone. Okay, and this ozone is dangerous, harmful to the human body. Okay, this ozone is the toxic to the human body. Human cannot survive in this environment which is contain the ozone. Okay, this ozone is useful in the case of reflecting the radioactive, or we can say the UV rays from the sunlight or the sun radiation, but it is toxic and it is dangerous to the human body. So in that case, uh, we have whenever there is this atomic oxygen break out from the nitrous oxide, it will react with the oxygen, normal oxygen, and it will create the ozone, which is again the dangerous to the human body. Another uh, pollutant which is coming out from the combustion, that is the carbon monoxide. Carbon monoxide is again one of the dangerous one. It is causes the global warming. It will again dangerous to the human body. When this added into the atmosphere, it will pollutate the atmosphere. It will causes the heat imbalance into the atmosphere, and that will again increases the global warming levels. Okay, so burning of the fossil fuel, which is again which will responsible to increase the 10% of the carbon monoxide into the atmosphere, and that will causes, or that will if, affect the global warming procedure, because these particular CO or CO2, carbon monoxide or the carbon dioxide will having very high green green warming potential. Okay, so when it is added into the atmosphere, it will absorb the heat and kept with it. Okay, it will keep the heat, and that is causing the warming of the that is causing the global warming. So all these pollutants coming out from the power plants will causes some bad effect on the environment and also on the human being. Okay, there are in other pollutants are also like the ash, fly ash, or we can say the particulate matter, or it is generally indicated by PM, particulate matter. Okay, now these fly ash is also the small particles of the fly ash is also very dangerous. When it came in contact with the human body, it will causes the cancer. When it enters into the respiratory system of the human body, it will causes the cancer. Okay, so it is the size of this particular matter is very less, very small. Okay, it is nearly in micrometers, nearly 10 micrometer or 2 or 3 micrometer. That is the size of particular matter. So when it enter into the respiratory system of the human body, it will uh, it will stick to the inner surface, and that will causes the cancer. Or sometimes it is when it came in contact with the eyes, human eye, it will causes the irritation. Okay, so this particular matter, actually the size of this particular matter is very less or very small. It is in the micrometer. So uh, this will causes some bad effect on the human body. Also, it will causes some bad effect on the environment also. Okay, so the particular matter or the fly ash, powder fly ash, which is coming out from the thermal power plant, which is cause again one of the type of pollutant. The base type for the coal-based 400 megawatt plant, which is emit 10 ton of fly ash per day. Okay, so per day we have 10 ton of fly ash. The fly size of that different matters, or the fly ash particles are very small that we cannot uh, we cannot control that 100% fly ash. Okay, during the transportation or during the uh, uh, storage of the fly ash, some particular matters will mix with the airflow, and in that case also it is going to travel from one point to the another point, that is again created some problems. So these fly ash, we have to recycle this fly ash, we have to use it in the other applications. Nowadays, the bricks has been constructed by using this fly ash, but the amount of fly ash which is generated in the thermal power plant is very large. Okay, so some 400 megawatt of thermal power plant which is running on the coal, which will emit the 10 ton of fly ash per day. Nearly 3 million tons of fly ash will be emitted by per day by 30 power plants in the India. So we have to dispose that 3 million tons of fly ash. Now we cannot dispose directly into the atmosphere because it is having some acidic nature. This fly ash is having some acidic nature. So when it mixes with the water body, or when it mixes with the normal ground, it will some chemical reaction will happen, and it will affect the conditions of the soil also. Okay, so in that case, soil pollution is also carried out because of the fly ash. So we have to dispose this fly ash in particular matter. We have to we have to design the system or the method to recycle this fly ash in the form of bricks or any other application. Okay, so these are the some pollutants. There are many pollutants which are coming out from the particular thermal power plants, but those are the main or the major pollutants that we saw. That is the sulfuric dioxide, sulfur dioxide, then the oxides of the nitrogen, then the carbon monoxide and carbon dioxide, and other pollutants. There is a fly ash. So these are some pollutants coming out from the thermal power plant which is running on the coal, particularly in the case of coal. This table will indicate or show you the amount of pollutants coming out from the particular thermal power plant which is running on the coal, which is running on the oil, and which is one of the power plant running on the natural gas. So you can see the different pollutants, different aldehydes coming out from the uh, particular thermal power plant, then the oxides of nitrogen, oxides of the sulfur, carbon monoxide, carbon dioxide, hydrocarbons, and the particulate matters. Generally, it will consist the fly ash. Okay, so you can see the coal, whatever the thermal power plant which is working on the coal, it will emit most of the pollutants. Okay, as we when we compare these values of the pollutants with the oil-based and natural-based pollutants or the pollution, you will see the maximum pollution will be carried out whenever we use coal as a fuel. Okay, if you consider the particulate matter, you can see the particulate matter emitted by this coal-based power plant is 3.96 into 10 raised to 5, 10 raised to 5 uh, pounds per second. Okay. Similarly, in the case of oil, this particular matter is again high, very high. Okay, because now this particular matter is again depends upon the fuel quality of the fuel. Okay. In the case of natural gas, this particular matter is very less. In the case of natural gas combustion, efficient combustion will take place. That's why the generation of the carbon monoxide and unburned hydrocarbons are very less. The amount of unburned hydrocarbons and the carbon monoxide very less in the case of natural gas, because the combustion is very efficient in the case of natural gas. Okay. Now, similarly, you can uh, compare these pollutants coming out from the thermal power plant with the IC engine, right? Because there are some power plants which are running on the IC engine, like the diesel generator set. Okay, so in that case also, we can compare this one with the IC engines and other type of the thermal power plants. Now, this is particularly related to the thermal power plant. In the case of hydroelectric power plant, the emissions are very less. The pollution caused by the hydroelectric power plant is very less. The most of the pollution caused is related to the soil. Okay, So this is particularly related to the thermal power plant. And you can compare when we changes the fuel, the amount of pollutants is also going to be changes. Okay. In the case of oil, the sulfur oxide, the amount of sulfur oxide is very high. Okay, it is less than the coal, but it is very high whenever we compare it to the natural gas. So now in India, most of the thermal power plants are going to convert it from coal to the oil or coal to the natural gas. Okay, so the pollution level or pollutants coming out from the thermal power plants will reduce it. Okay, now this is regarding the comparison between the thermal pollutants or the pollutions coming out from the thermal power plant, and these particular table will shows you the effects of the pollutants on the human body or on the vegetations or the materials. Okay, so these particularly effects you can already saw in man. Suffocation will irrigation will happen on vegetation. Restriction of the sensitive cards will be happen, or the corrosion will happen on the materials, etc. Okay, so all those factors you can see, these are the effects which is happen on the man, on the human body, on the vegetation, or the animals, etc. Okay, or the particles. So you can see this is the pollutant, different types of the pollutant. It is the quantity, okay, and this is the effects on the human body as well as on the environment or the material. Okay, so this table will indicate you the effects. Now thermal power plant also causes the water pollution, as we know, because the thermal power plant, the very high temperature water will be discharged from the condenser side. Okay, so this water pollution which is caused by discharging of hot condenser water, and this water which will be directly discharged into the river, carrying the ash of the plant sometimes. So that is again going to affect on the water quality of the thermal power plant. Okay, so this discharge polluted water causes the hydrological as well as the biological effect on the surrounding ecology, because the quality of the water will reduce it, degrade it, and that will going to affect on its biological or we can say the ecosystem of the water. Okay. Also, it is going to be affect the hydrological properties of the water. Means its pH level will vary. Sometimes that water will be converted or become the more acidic. So it is not. We can say that it is harmful to the ecosystem, water ecosystem, which is present there. Okay. So this water pollution, which is mainly caused because of the hot water discharged from the condenser, and also sometimes this particular water will contain some fly ash. Okay, so that is again going to affect the water quality. Okay, the biological study which will should determine the types of aquatic organisms in the area and their adaptability to the environmental variation. Because when we changes the temperature of water, it is going to affect the this particular ecosystem. Okay, whatever the different bacteria or we can say the different organisms present inside the water, whenever we changes the temperature, there will be some effect on that particular organism. Okay, so there is, because of this thermal pollution, water is very important for the fish and cultivation, because their growth will be depends upon the temperature of the water. Whenever it slightly changes the temperature of water, it is badly affect on the fish cultivation. Okay, so that is again important to see. Another serious problem associated with the discharge water is the ash carried away by the water, and the ash gets spread over sometimes on the large cultivated areas along with the path of the rivers, and it will affect the agriculture growth. So before releasing this particular discharge, hot water or the polluted water into the natural river or into any particular aquatic body, we have to carry out some methods. Okay, we have to reduce its temperature, or we can reduce the pollution level. We can treat that particular water first of all, and then after that we can release it into the river. Okay, there are many methods through which we can eject the different pollutants from this particular water, particularly different salts which are salt or minerals which are soluble, which are mixed into this particular water, like the magnesium, Okay, so there is a magnesium is available. Sometimes magnesium oxides are available into the polluted water. Sometimes calcium carbide tricarbonates are also available into this particular polluted water. So by using different methods, we can reduce the levels of those particular pollutants, and after this treatment, we can directly release this water into the surrounding water body. Okay, so these are just an introduction part. Okay, this will give you what is the effect, or it will revise the effects of water pollution and the air pollution caused by the thermal power plant. Okay, you can also refer different books to deeply understand what are the pollutants coming out from the thermal power plant. You can also refer the Central Pollution Control Board website, so you can understand what are the different uh, pollutants coming out from the thermal power plant. What is the proportion of that pollutants coming out from the from thermal power plants with the other sources. Okay, so that you can find out by using the different reports which are available on the Central Pollution Control Board website. Okay, I will share it. I will share those that website later on your WhatsApp group, and also I will share the recorded session of this particular lecture. Okay, so we will stop here. In the next lecture, we are going to see the different pollution of, which is carried happen because of the nuclear power plant, and the noise pollution and its control methods. Okay, so these are the we are stopping here. That is the air pollution and water pollution caused by the thermal power plant. These are the main pollution. Okay, other pollution like the soil pollution is also there, but there will be not that much of we can say the affect the soil conditions. So we are particularly concentrating on the water pollution and the air pollution because it is carry the very these particular pollutants are available into exhaust gases in very large extent. Okay, and we can easily see the effects of the pollutants on the environment. So we are going to concentrate on that, and the different machines, or we can say the instruments that we are going to study in this particular chapter, which are again related to the air pollution and the water pollution. Okay, so we will stop here. In the next lecture, we will going to cover the remaining points. Thank you.